Sefer Bamidbar in general, and Parashat Bamidbar in particular, begin with Hashem telling Moshe to make order out of the camp of Bnei Yisrael, presumably in anticipation of their imminent entrance into Eretz Canaan and the establishment of a society there. If we jump to Parak Bet, the second Parak and the third Aliyah in this week's Torah reading, the Torah tells us that Hashem told Moshe to assign to Bnei Yisrael where they would camp around the Mishkan. The Mishkan would be in the center, and the 12 tribes would encamp around the Mishkan, each tribe on a different side. The pasuk says, "Ish al diglo be'otot lebeit avotam." They had to encamp near their banner, the banner of their shevet, lebeit avotam. We're going to return to that phrase in a moment. Yachanu b'nei Yisrael should encamp. Mineged saviv l'ohel moed yachanu. They're going to encamp around Ohel Moed. And the Torah proceeds to list for us where each shevet is going to camp. So Yehuda, Yisachar, and Zvulun, they're going to camp in the east. Reuven, Shimon, and Gad, they're going to camp in the south. Ephraim, Menashe, and Binyamin, they're in the west. Dan, Asher, and Naphtali are in the north. And that's the configuration that Hashem told Moshe to tell the Shvatim, here's how you're going to encamp around the Mishkan. What's this phrase, lebeit avotam? Does it just mean that, get together with your family, get together with your other cousins, and that's the group of people with whom you're going to camp? The Midrash sees something deeper and more fundamental in that phrase. What does the phrase lebeit avotam mean? The Midrash tells us a story. It says that when Hashem told Moshe to assign a different side of the Mishkan to each one of the Shvatim, Moshe was worried. What if I tell Yehuda to camp in the east, but he really wants to camp in the south? What if I tell Binyamin to camp in the west, but he really wants to camp in the north? Assigning places to people, it's a recipe for chaos. It's a recipe for dissatisfaction. Who knows what could happen? The goal is to make order, but actually what it might cause is all kinds of grumbling and people not wanting to camp on this side or that side or whatever it is. And Hashem tells Moshe, you need to relax. Because in truth, the configuration in which Bnei Yisrael are going to camp at this moment is not a new concept that you, Moshe, are conveying to them, but it's actually something that resides deep in their collective national memory. Why? That's lebeit avotam. The Midrash says that Hashem told Moshe, the order that they're going to encamp around the Mishkan is the same order that they stood around the bed of Yaakov Avinu when he was about to depart this world and when he gave brachot to his children. When Yaakov was giving the brachot, Yehuda, Yisachar, Zvulun, they were in the east. Reuven, Shimon, and Gad were in the south. Ephraim, Menashe, and Binyamin were in the west. Dan, Asher, and Naphtali were in the north. That's how they stood around the bed of Yaakov Avinu. That's how they received the brachot. That's how, as Chazal tell us, they were makabel ol malchut shamayim and reaffirmed their belief in the God of their ancestors of Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. And ultimately, when Yaakov Avinu departed this world, that's how they carried Yaakov out of the room. Each person standing on his side of the east, the south, the north, the west, and that's the order in which they're going to encamp in the Mishkan. And so Hashem tells Moshe Rabbeinu, Moshe, you don't have to worry about this assignment causing disunity. You don't have to worry about this assignment causing chaos because the configuration of their encampment is something that resides deep within the consciousness of Bnei Yisrael. And what we're doing now is simply bringing it to the fore and telling them that this is how you're going to encamp now. What is the Midrash really trying to tell us? The moment of Yaakov Avinu's death, when Yaakov was about to depart this world, that's a formative moment in the history of Am Yisrael. The sons of Yaakov go from being sons, from being individuals, to being called Shivtei Yisrael Shnei Masar. After Yaakov blesses them, the pasuk, for the first time ever, refers to them not as people, individual sons, but as Shvatim, as tribes, as ancestors of a group with a collective sense of identity and with a collective sense of self. They've transitioned from people to a nation. That's the formative moment of the Mitah of Yaakov Avinu. And now, when, at least ostensibly, Am Yisrael are about to enter into their land, here we have another formative moment. And so, Am Yisrael knows that when it's time for us to function as a nation, we hearken back to the bed of Yaakov Avinu, and we understand that this is where we come from, and this is what we're meant to do. What is the Midrash telling us? The Midrash is telling us that sometimes there is a threat of disunity. Sometimes there are things that divide us. We Jewish people, we have different opinions, we have different origins, we have different ways of seeing things, and sometimes we can quarrel, and sometimes we can disagree, and sometimes we can disagree with great passion, and yet there is something that ultimately unifies us. If we remember that once upon a time, we all stood around the bed of Yaakov Avinu. We all have a common origin. And if we remember that once upon a time, we all lifted Yaakov Avinu together and we walked out together in that same way, we all have a common sense of mission. If we're unified by a sense of common origin, and we're unified by a sense of common mission, two very basic, very fundamental concepts that can unify us, then we can live with division, then we can live with disagreement, then we could live with difference, no matter how passionate it might get, as long as we have two very deep, very fundamental unifying factors within our identity. A fundamental sense of origin and a fundamental sense of mission. Then we know that we are Am Yisrael. We come from the same place, we're going to the same place, and that allows us to be diverse, that allows us to be garrulous, that allows us to disagree, as long as we deeply, deeply understand the unity that lies at our core. We can work together, we can travel together, and disagree all along the way. One unified people, we are Am Yisrael, and deep, deep inside, each one of us knows where we come from and what our mission is.